Hello and welcome back. It is Monday. I am Mr. Sosotris, and this week I wanted to talk about my digital TBR because a lot of times on video sites like YouTube and TikTok and whatnot, people prefer like physical books because you could hold them up and show them to the camera and everything, and they sort of look better. And so a lot of times we neglect our digital TBR, and I have a Kobo and a Kindle, and in both there's often quite a few sales online or like stuff your Kindle events where you can get things for free, and there's a lot of indie books that are only available sort of in ebook format. And so there's a lot of books that I have in my library that I don't see every day on the shelf, and so I often forget about them because I don't see them, and so my brain just is like, oh, that's just a thing that doesn't exist, and it's terrible. And so this video is partly a way for me to keep myself accountable for the books in my library, but also to share some books that I am looking forward to read. And I'd love to, if you have read any of these, let me know what your thoughts on them are. So let's get into it. I'm going to first jump into the books I have in my Kobo library that I haven't gotten to yet. So first off is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. I think this was on sale leading up to the release of the TV show, which I think has just come out. And so I picked that one up because I've wanted to read this for a while. This is the first book in her Murderbot series. It's a novella, it's short, it's easy to get through, so I need to just jump into it. But it seems like something that I would be very much into. Next up, I've got The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. This is the first book in his Dandelion Dynasty series. This is epic fantasy set in sort of a fantasy world inspired by ancient China. Each book is quite hefty, so it's kind of a big commitment, but I've heard nothing but good things about them. I've heard that his writing style sort of evokes the language of older epics, so I'm very much excited to read that. It just seems like, I love fantasy that's sort of like a Tolkien-esque sort of thing, where it sort of captures that heroic, elevated older style that you don't see a lot. Next up, I want to continue the Oz books by L. Frank Baum. I made it up to book 9, which is The Scarecrow of Oz, and I sort of fell away from it. I managed to pick up the whole collection. It's on Kobo for like $2 or whatever. It was great. And I really enjoyed the first few. I mean, they're kids' books, so you'd think they would be sort of simple and you can get through them, but they're a little dense sometimes. And after the 6th book, you can tell that Baum's heart really wasn't in it. He's just kind of treading water and is sort of like, he's still creating imaginative scenarios, but you can tell the magic really isn't as strong as it was. It kind of became a bit of a slog, but I do want to finish them. I want to do a video on kind of the whole series as a whole. So eventually I will get back to them and finish them. They're not long. I think I have 5 books left in the series, but I just need to get to that. Next up is Adwell's Sin by Daniel T. Jackson. This is the sequel to his book Illborn, which I really, really enjoyed. It was one of my favorite fantasy reads when I got to it. It really feels fresh and new and compelling, and it kind of reminded me of the first time I read sort of Game of Thrones, the first book in the Song of Ice and Fire series. It really felt like it was doing something new with fantasy while still working within a framework that felt familiar. And I really, really loved the character arcs in the first one. There's some really great things that happen there. So I'm looking forward to continuing the series. His 3rd book just came out recently. It's called Gatebound, and these are ones that I've like pre-ordered as they come out. I am on a book buying ban this year, but these ones sort of don't count because they're good and I know I will read them. So next up is another fantasy one, and this is We Are the Dead by Mike Shackle. This is grimdark fantasy. It's supposed to be really, really brutal and deep and complex and morally ambiguous, and it seemed like something that I would really, really like. I actually picked up all 3 books in the series, and I just need to get to it. This is one that I've kind of put off because it is very dark, and so I want to be in sort of the right mindset to properly sort of appreciate it, and I don't really know what that mindset is. Do you read grimdark when you're in a happy, positive mood so that the dark, awful things that happen to the characters don't affect your mood? Or do you read it when you're sad and in a dark mood so that you can relate to the characters. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I am excited to get to it. The next on the list is kind of a lighter-hearted one, and that is A Betrayer of Storms by Ben Alderson. This is book 1 in his Realm of Fae series. The 4th book is coming out pretty soon, and this is sort of his response to the romantasy series like A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's a fae romance, romantasy kind of thing, but it's gay, which is great. I like the way Ben Alderson writes. His stuff, he really captures that perfect blend of like melodrama and magic and genuine heartfelt characters that just makes it work. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's still an enjoyable read. It's not just fluff. And so I'm excited to read this series. I pre-ordered all of them, so as soon as the new ones have come out, I've just grabbed them immediately. But I am excited to get to this one, and this is probably something I'll read over the summer because it just seems like a fun summer read. We'll see how that goes. But I am excited to get into this one. The next 2 books are ones that I'll probably read over the Halloween season because they're sort of darker horror themed ones. First up is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. This is one that it just looked like extremely my jam. I love vampires, and gothic horror is one of my favorite genres. So I haven't read her other book, The Hacienda, but that one is sort of on my radar as well. But her books have gotten really great reviews, and I love sort of the vibe that they seem to be giving. So I'm excited to read this one, but yes, I will read this one in like September or October. And then after that, I've got Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. This is gothic horror, maybe romance, and I think it is also YA as well, but it features sort of a really twisted relationship between 2 sort of complicated characters, and the horror vibes are all in sort of decay and mushrooms and creepy forests and folk horror and all that kind of stuff. And so that seemed like something that I would be very much into. And even though it's YA, it's not like young YA, it's fairly mature is what I've sort of read. So I don't know, the vibes seem really perfect. It's got this kind of Rappaccini's Daughter sort of vibe. That's a story by Nathaniel Hawthorne that it is kind of a poison ivy sort of character. You've got this sort of this creepy poison garden, and then this woman who lives in it who is sort of affected by the plants around her, and so she's sort of poisoned. So I don't know, this one seemed fun, and it's definitely one that I want to read over Halloween. The next one is one that I'll probably read sort of leading up to the fall. It sort of feels like a fall read, and that's Dead Egyptians by Del Blackwater. This is an indie horror-ish, urban fantasy-ish kind of thing. It's set in turn of the century England and Egypt, and features a character who can see ghosts, who sees kind of the ghosts of ancient Egyptian people, and gets caught up in sort of a complicated scenario with that. And ancient Egypt is very much my vibe, and the turn of the century, sort of the Mummy era. Well, I guess the Mummy was sort of set in the 30s, or like the 20s. But that's okay. This is still one that just really, it just seems like it's something that I would really, really love. And so I'm excited to get into that one. And then finally, for my Kobo reads, I've got Batman Resurrection by John Jackson Miller. This is a sequel to the 1989 Tim Burton movie Batman. So it's a continuation of that universe, sort of Batman, but like Tim Burton gothic situation. And it just is really fun. This one is set sort of between Batman and Batman Returns. And he does have 2 other books coming out in the series. I don't know if all 3 of them are set in between those 2 movies, or if the other 2 are set kind of after Batman Returns, so we can maybe see, Selena Kyle come back or something. I don't know. But those 2 are probably my 2 favorite Batman movies. And there's others that are probably better movies overall, but just in terms of nostalgia's sake, those are the ones that were kind of cemented in my brain as like, this is Batman. And I love them so much. So I'm excited to read this. John Jackson Miller's done a lot of tie-in writing for other franchises. He's written for Star Wars, he's written for Star Trek, and all of his stuff is great. He really has a good sense of capturing the feel of the universe. His writing is really fun, and it just feels like you're just watching another movie set in that world. So I'm excited to get to this one. So moving over to my Kindle reads, these are books that I either got for free from like Stuff Your Kindle events, or got on sale, or I read them while I briefly had Kindle Unlimited and decided that I really, really liked them and I bought them or continued the series. Kindle Unlimited is one, I don't have it anymore. I did have it briefly, but it was causing a lot of anxiety because there's sort of this feeling that you have to read a certain amount of books per month to justify the cost of the subscription, and I just didn't want to have to deal with that. So I canceled my subscription, but I do still have quite a few books that I've collected in that library, and so I do want to read them eventually. And there's lots of great indie stuff. There's a bunch of indie authors that I was either exposed to or am interested to read, and so we'll see how that goes. First up on the list is Goddess of Light by Karina Halley. This is book 4 in her Underworld Gods series, which is sort of a Percy Jackson for adults, but instead of Greek mythology, it's Finnish mythology. So you've got this mortal kind of main character who gets pulled into the Finnish underworld and encounters the gods and monsters and denizens of that world, and gets caught up in sort of this power struggle going on between all the various characters. And then of course it is also kind of a dark fantasy romance sort of thing, and so of course she falls for the god of death. And the series is just, it's a lot of fun. There's a section in, I think it's the 3rd book, where her and the god of death sort of have to pretend to be normal everyday people on Earth. And so they like check into a hotel and like do normal human stuff, and he's not very good at it, and it's so funny. The romance is great too, but I just love sarcastic humor of the series. It's a lot of fun, and this is the final book in the series. Book 3 ended on a pretty big cliffhanger, so I'm excited to finish the series and dive into that. Next up is The Sparrow and the Oak Tree by Jamie Jackson. This is one that I follow the author on Bluesky, and this book just seemed like something that I would really be into. It's sort of dark fantasy romance-ish. It's sort of inspired by like Tristan and Isolde, and I think there's zombies as well. And I don't know, it just seemed like it's a good mix of sort of creepy and magical and heartfelt. I don't know. It just seemed like something that I would be into. The cover is also really, really pretty, but this is one that I'm really excited to read. It's been on my TBR for a while, but I keep forgetting that it's there, which is terrible because I have to read it. Next up is A Game of Wings and Marks by Rebecca Crunden. Rebecca Crunden, you probably know her on Bluesky. She's Indie Book Spotlight and is really good at highlighting sort of other indie authors. I read her book, Dust and Lightning, which I think is a novella, but that was a sci-fi sort of story, and I really, really loved it. Her writing style is great. It was compelling, it was very real and visceral, pulled you along. The characters are complex and multifaceted in really interesting ways, and so I am excited to continue with reading her other works. This one sort of features angels and demons in a power struggle, and then a mortal character who gets pulled into that. I don't know if it has any romantic elements. Her books are not always romance. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they aren't. So I don't know quite where this goes, but I'm really excited to read kind of all of her stuff because I really like her writing style. Next up on the list is Wistful Ascending by J.C.M. Byrne. This is a superhero novel, and I believe it's book 1 of a 6-book series. There might even be more books coming out in the future, but I love when authors create sort of their own superhero universe and look at the effects of what would it be like if there were superheroes. What effect would that have on kind of everyday people, the culture, the world dynamics, everything. And I don't know, it just struck me as a book that was very much my jam, because I love superhero anything. I'm a big MCU fan, and I love when authors create their own superhero universes that aren't tied to any pre-existing properties. So I'm excited to dive into this one, and if I really like it, I'll continue with the series. Next up, this one is a little bit different. This is Caraway of the Sea by Madeleine Berget, and this one is, it's kind of The Princess Bride if the focus was on the Dread Pirate Roberts. And so you've got pirates, and I believe there is a romance element, but the heroine is sort of described as stabby by the author, so she's much more sort of prickly and complicated than usually you see in kind of a romance lead. But this one looks great. The vibes are really engaging, and so I'm excited to dive into this one. I've not read anything by this author before, but I'm curious to see how it goes. Next up, this one's quite different. This is The Black Lord by Colin Hinckley. This is probably one that I'm also going to read over Halloween. This is like dark folk horror and creepy, and I don't know, it got really good reviews. It looks like something that would interest me. I've never read anything by this author before. This is their debut work, so I'm excited to get into this one. But yeah, this one strikes me as very much a Halloween read. It's scary, spooky, and very dark. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. Changing genres one more time, the next book on the list is Colony 1 by Tara Benner. This is one that just sort of, it was suggested at one point, and I think it was like free as part of like a Stuff Your Kindle event. And it's sci-fi and human colonies outside of Earth, and a character sort of gets invited up to join this colony, and hijinks ensue. It seemed like something that I would be really interested in, and I was like, why not? Let's just give it a go. So I'm curious to see how that one goes. I don't know anything about the author, but it seems like it's a fun read. And then finally on this list is Witch in the Lighthouse by Azalea Forrest. This is sort of a cozy-ish fantasy. You've got a character who's a witch who inherits a lighthouse, which is, I love lighthouses so much, and then meets up with sort of another witch who has sort of been ostracized by society, and they're able to sort of help each other heal and commiserate over their traumas and hang-ups and everything. I don't know, it seems like something that just fits with how my brain works, because I too would love to be a loner lighthouse keeper who helps people who stumble onto my doorstep. I don't know, that just seems like something that I would do. And so this is one that I'm really excited to read. There is a second book in the series, which I do also have. I believe they were both on sale, and so I grabbed those pretty quick because it seemed like something that I would be into. But we'll see how it goes. One thing I really like about the ebook circles is that they have these sales and promotions where you can try out things that you normally wouldn't read otherwise. Indie books aren't often as widely marketed in bookstores or anything, and so a lot of times it's up to the author themselves to sort of do all their own marketing. And so social media, for all of its faults, one thing that it's good for, it's giving sort of indie authors a chance to market their books and see what kinds of things that they want to add to the world. Plus, indie authors tend to be sort of ahead of the curve on trends, because it takes a long time for a book to be published in traditional publishing spaces. So from the time when a book is finished to when it actually hits the shelves can sometimes be like a few years. And so oftentimes traditional publishing is either right with the trends, or they're just a little bit late, just a little bit past the trends kind of thing. But indie authors, they either self-publish or they can publish through indie presses who are able to get books out faster. They are often kind of ahead of the curve in terms of what's popular and trying out new things and exploring new genres that maybe aren't as mainstream. And so there's lots of really great indie authors who are writing really good stuff that I think more people need to hear about. So definitely check out some indie ebooks. They're usually not as expensive as traditional published books. I know Amazon is going to be changing its rules soon, which is going to make it harder for indie authors on Amazon to make money, which is really awful because Amazon doesn't need to cut costs that much. Like, they're not failing as a company. But if you have Kobo, and you don't need a Kobo e-reader either, if you have a tablet or even your phone, you can download the Kobo app and you can go onto the website and you can buy indie books for really inexpensive or free sometimes, and just try out kind of new authors that you wouldn't normally experience, because there's lots of good stuff out there. So anyways, with that, I will let you go. I will see you next week, and in the meantime, happy reading. Bye.